through a gap in the intricate tapestry that adorned the hidden passageway. Elara witnessed an image that seemed to defy reality. A woman cloaked in emerald green stood before her parents Liam and Mira. Her most striking feature, however, was the fiery red hair that mirrored Elara's own, a stark contrast to the brown locks that dominated not only her family but her people as a whole. An otherworldly aura clung to the woman, making the hairs on Elara's arms stand on end. Despite the distance, Elara felt an inexplicable connection to the woman, a pull that tugged at the very core of her being. Her parents, their faces etched with a mix of shock and something deeper, listened intently to the woman's hushed words. Her voice, melodic and low, carried a power that resonated within Elara, stirring a dormant echo within her soul. Curiosity burned brighter than any fear, threatening to push her out of her hiding place. Yet, a sliver of caution held her back, urging her to listen and gather the fragments of this unexpected conversation. As Elara strained to decipher the hushed whispers, a single word pierced through the tapestry of sound, striking her like a bolt of lightning. Elara. It was spoken with an authority laced with warmth, a voice that seemed to echo a memory from a forgotten dream. It was almost as if the woman had recognized her presence and was calling out to her. Confusion and a spark of fear warred within Elara. Who was this woman who knew her name? A name practically unheard of in their family with its generations of nobles? What secrets did she hold, unable to hold back any longer? Elara pushed aside the heavy fabric, stepping out of the shadows and into the flickering light of the grand hall. All eyes turned towards her, her parents' faces, etched with a mix of relief and apprehension, mirrored her own confusion. The woman in green, her gaze locked on Elara, gave a gentle smile. "There you are, child," she said, her voice soft yet filled with unspoken stories. Elara stood frozen, her mind racing. This woman, shrouded in mystery, not only knew her name, but shared this rare flame of red hair. And in that moment, Elara knew her life would never be the same. The tapestry of her existence, woven with familiar routines and dreams of faraway places, had a new, crimson thread running through it, a thread that beckoned her towards a destiny she never knew existed. The air crackled with tension even thicker than the dust motes dancing in the golden light. Elara's heart fluttered in her chest, a trapped bird desperate to escape. The woman in emerald green stretched out a hand in greeting. Before Elara could decipher the emotion swirling in her emerald eyes, her father stepped forward, his face, usually etched with the calm lines of seasons past, was now creased with worry. "Elara," he began, his voice strained with a mix of relief and apprehension. "This is Lyra," he faltered, searching for the words. Finally, he settled on, "She's come a long way." Lyra's smile softened. "From the capital, to be precise," she said, her voice melodic and laced with a hint of an unfamiliar accent. "But my journey extends far beyond mere miles. I carry a matter of grave importance, one that concerns not just Elara, but a heritage far grander." Elara, unable to tear her gaze from the woman's emerald eyes, felt a shiver crawl down her spine. Heritage. What grander heritage could possibly exist for her beyond the simple life she knew? Her mother, her voice trembling slightly, knelt beside her. "Lyra brings news about something sacred." "Elara," she explained, her words echoing the concern etched on her father's face. "Something that connects you to a legacy far older than this valley." Elara stared at her parents, their faces filled with a mixture of fear and a strange reverence that sent a wave of confusion crashing over her. A sacred heritage. What did it all mean? Lyra's gaze never left Elara's, her eyes holding a depth of understanding that seemed to pierce through Elara's very being. "There is an ancient power within you, Elara," she said, her voice soft yet powerful. "A power that has been coveted by many for generations." Elara's breath caught in her throat. An ancient power within her, the notion was both terrifying and exhilarating. Her life, once a tapestry of predictable colors, was now being splashed with vivid hues of the unknown, weaving a path that led far beyond the familiar fields of her childhood. However, before Elara could fully comprehend the weight of these revelations, her father intervened. His voice, though firm, held an undercurrent of desperation. "The mountains, Lyra," he said, his gaze flickering between the woman and his daughter. "Winter is coming soon. It wouldn't be safe for Elara to travel in such harsh conditions. Especially when she's still." He trailed off, his words failing to capture the complex emotions swirling within him. He still felt that Elara was his little girl, but seeing her now made him also realize she was growing up fast. "I understand your concerns, Liam," she said, her voice gentle but laced with urgency. "But the situation is critical. Every passing day puts Elara, and what she represents, at risk." A heavy silence descended upon the room. Elara, caught in the crossfire between duty and safety, felt a growing sense of responsibility stir within her. She knew that she had to choose to embrace this newfound heritage and leave the comfort of her familiar life. The tapestry of her existence had irrevocably changed, and the threads of her future were now waiting to be woven. "The mountains, Lyra," Liam repeated, his voice firm but laced with a pleading tone. "Winter tightens its grip daily, and the journey is treacherous even in the best of times. Elara has never ventured beyond our valley, and..." He trailed off, his gaze filled with concern for his daughter and the weight of the unknown. Lyra's face softened with understanding, the firelight dancing in her emerald eyes. "I understand your apprehension, Liam," she said, her voice gentle yet resolute. "But the urgency of this situation cannot be overstated. The fate of the land, not just your valley, but the very existence of our kingdom, hangs in the balance." A shiver ran down Elara's spine as Lyra's words echoed in the silence. The fate of an entire kingdom? What did she mean? Sensing Elara's confusion, her mother reached out and squeezed her hand. "Lyra speaks of a truth long hidden, Elara," she said softly, "a truth about your heritage and the power that resides within you." Liam's brow furrowed. He glanced at Elara, his face etched with a conflicting mix of reluctance and a strange sense of acceptance. "But you cannot ask us to send her into the heart of winter with such dangers," he said, his voice filled with paternal protectiveness. "Surely, there must be another way." Lyra shook her head, a hint of sorrow flickering in her eyes. "The longer Elara remains here, the more your people are in danger," she said, her voice laced with urgency. "Your daughter possesses a rare and potent ability, one coveted by our neighboring kingdoms. They seek to exploit it for their own purposes. Every passing day puts her at greater risk of being torn from her homelands." The silence in the room stretched, heavy with the weight of this revelation. Elara, caught in the center of this whirlwind, felt a wave of fear and confusion threaten to engulf her. The world she thought she knew had irrevocably shifted, and the tapestry of her future was now being woven with threads of a destiny she never dreamed existed. Her thoughts ran wild trying to decipher the elusiveness of the explanation. The tension in the room remained thick as Elara's parents absorbed Lyra's words. Liam, his brow furrowed, wrestled with the internal conflict of protecting his daughter and fulfilling his duty. He glanced at Elara, his heart heavy with the prospect of her leaving. The thought of her braving the treacherous journey and the unknown dangers in the capital gnawed him. Lyra, sensing his apprehension, placed a comforting hand on his arm. "I understand your concerns, Liam," she said, her voice softening. "Sending Elara away is no easy task, and the journey ahead will be perilous. However, I assure you, we haven't made this request lightly." Liam's gaze flickered from Lyra to Elara, searching for any sign of fear or uncertainty in his daughter. He found none, only a steely resolve mirroring his own. Lyra continued, her voice taking on a reassuring tone. The king understands your worry about the vulnerability of your valley in times to come. To address this concern, the capital has dispatched a regiment of our most elite soldiers to Castlethorn. They are slated to arrive in late spring. They will remain here, bolstering your defenses and ensuring your safety. A flicker of relief barely registered across Liam's face, knowing that their valley wouldn't be completely exposed during next year's growing season barely registered. He couldn't shake his focus on his daughter's well-being. Lyra, seeing Liam's lack of focus, cleared her throat. They will be stationed here at Castlethorn, as I mentioned. Lyra continued, and they will be prepared to respond to any potential threats, keeping the surrounding villages, including yours, safe. They will report directly to you following your orders. Liam nodded slowly, finally registering Lyra's words, while he still harbored concerns about Elara's journey. Knowing their valley wouldn't be left defenseless eased some of his anxieties. Liam finally gazed towards Lyra with a firm affirmation and gratitude. Suddenly the door creaked open with a bang, shattering the fragile peace. Mrs. Beatrice, the village seamstress notorious for her sharp tongue and even sharper temper, stormed into the room, her arms akimbo and her face a thundercloud. Liam, she barked, her voice dripping with disdain, your daughter is out daydreaming again instead of attending her lesson. Honestly, the girl has the attention span of a gnat and the work ethic of a cat. This is the third time this month she skipped out on her lessons. And I won't have it. Elara flinched under Mrs. Beatrice's scrutiny, her cheeks burning with a mixture of embarrassment and defiance, before she could stammer out an apology. Lyra rose from her seat, her demeanor shifting from gentle to steely. Mrs. Beatrice, she said, her voice laced with a hint of steel, I believe there has been a misunderstanding. Elara has been occupied with important matters. Mrs. Beatrice scoffed, her disapproval evident. Important matters, you say, and what might those be? Pray tell. Playing in the mud or chasing butterflies? Mrs. Beatrice had almost caught herself before realizing two things. Elara was there in the room, half hidden behind Mira, and the capital crest denoting the importance of the guest before her. Lyra hesitated, her gaze shifting between Elara and her parents. Liam, sensing her reluctance, placed a hand on his daughter's shoulder and spoke. Mrs. Beatrice, he said, his voice firm but respectful, there are matters that we cannot discuss at this time. However, I assure you, they are of greater importance than today's needlework. Mrs. Beatrice recognized the seriousness in Liam's voice, with a final disgruntled snort. As if trying to retain a sort of dignity, she muttered, well, see to it you send her straight to her lesson when your discussion is done. With that, she swept out of the room, leaving the faint scent of lavender and embarrassment in her wake. Tristan paced restlessly across the room, his usual proud demeanor replaced with what can only be described as an unraveling of his world. He had been present throughout the conversation with Lyra, his mind replaying the scene from earlier that day. The memory of the sudden explosion outside the castle walls, the blinding light, and the deafening roar, sent shivers down his spine. Tristan, his voice laced with suspicion, blurted out, did you hear the explosion? It was just west of Farmer Thomas's apple orchard. Elara winced, the memory of the event bringing back a wave of fear. Her hand instinctively flew to cover her mouth, mirroring the action from earlier. Liam exchanged a worried look with Lyra, both understanding the source of Tristan's concern. Lyra sat back down in her seat, her demeanor calm but firm. Tristan, Elara, she said, there is no need to worry. The explosion you witnessed was not an attack from any enemy force. Tristan stopped pacing and turned to face her, his skepticism evident. Not an attack, but the sky lit up like a dragon's maw. It was clearly some sort of weapon. Lyra sighed, knowing she needed to tread carefully. While the sight may have been alarming, she explained, it was not meant to cause harm. The explosion you witnessed was caused by a scouting party from a neighboring nation. Tristan's eyes widened in surprise. A scouting party? He hesitated, his voice dropping to a low murmur. From where? The Stormwind Plains had been at peace for as far back as Tristan could remember. There was nothing but farmers here. They always maintained good relations with the surrounding lands. Regardless if they belonged in a neighboring nation, trade was common here. Was his sister really worth sending entire armies out to capture her? Tristan remained unconvinced. He crossed his arms, a scowl forming on his face. So scouts are just waltzing around our lands, causing explosions, and we're supposed to believe it's not a big deal? Lara's smile faltered slightly, replaced by a firm expression. Tristan, she said, her voice leaving no room for argument, the situation is delicate. While we cannot condone their methods, we must understand their concerns. They will be dealt with appropriately, but for now, their presence is not a cause for alarm. He uncrossed his arms, a new worry chiseled into his brow. So, these scouts waltz in, causing a ruckus right outside our doorstep. And we're expected to simply accept it. His voice, though laced with anger, held a tremor of concern. What if it wasn't just a show next time? What if they decided they wanted to do more than just frighten the locals? Lara's gaze showed signs of annoyance. She understood the wellspring of Tristan's frustration. I understand your concern, Tristan, she said gently. The safety of the valley is of utmost importance to the capital as well. However, you must understand the delicate political landscape at play. The most important thing right now is to get your sister to a safer location. Once she's gone, there's not much reason to keep an invading force here. Tristan paced the room again, his steps agitated. And what about us? What about the safety of our people? These soldiers won't arrive until late spring. That's months away. Liam, his voice firm but laced with a hint of paternal reprimand, stepped in. Tristan, he said, remember yourself. You may one day be the leader of this valley, but not yet. You will learn to conduct yourself with respect, especially towards our guest. Tristan, taken aback by his father's intervention, stopped pacing and lowered his gaze. Shame flushed his cheeks as he realized his outburst had been unbecoming, especially in the presence of a representative of the capital. Lyra, sensing the shift in the atmosphere, spoke plaintively. It is understandable that you have concerns. Tristan, we all do. However, your father is right. We are working diligently to ensure the safety of the valley and its people. Trust that we will keep you informed of any developments and take all necessary precautions. Tristan nodded curtly, his earlier defiance replaced by a thoughtful frown. He knew his outburst had been out of line, but his worry for his sister and their home remained. He would have to find a way to reconcile his concerns with his respect for his father and their guest. With the tension somewhat abated, Liam placed a hand on Elara's shoulder. Elara, my dear, he said, his voice softening, it's time you begin saying your goodbyes to your friends. The journey ahead will be long, and you may not have the opportunity to see them for quite some time. Elara's heart ached at the thought of leaving her friends behind. Though excited about the opportunity to learn something about her abilities, the prospect of parting with them filled her with a pang of sadness. Elara looked at Tristan, his face carved with a mixture of worry and determination. And Tristan, Liam continued, his gaze shifting to his son, you'll need to inform Mrs. Beatrice that Elara's embroidery lessons will no longer be necessary. Tristan, still wrestling with his own emotions, managed a faint nod. He knew his father was right. Their lives were about to change irrevocably, and embroidery lessons would soon be the least of their concerns. As the echoes of the children's footsteps faded, Lyra offered her apologies as one last point of business remained. Behind the heavy oak door of the chamber, her demeanor shifted. Reaching behind into her pocket, she revealed a single, folded piece of cloth. As she unfolded it, the room, for a fleeting moment, seemed to dim, as if the fabric itself absorbed the light. Embroidered upon it were intricate symbols, their silver threads glowing with an otherworldly luminescence. Shapes that resembled swirling galaxies and crackling lightning danced across the surface, each one resonating with a slight power beyond human comprehension. Despite their unfamiliarity with ancient powers, Liam and Mira recognized immediately that this was something Elara had crafted. Lyra, her voice barely above a whisper, traced the symbols with a trembling finger. "The Stormwind Plains," she murmured, her gaze fixed on a small, weathered note tucked beneath the cloth. "This was intercepted from a carrier bird shortly before I arrived. It seems our quaint village may be home to a traitor."